Hi, I'm Polly Ham,
And I'm Bob Ham.
and we are going to spend some time talking about panic attacks. If you've watched our previous video, we described what anxiety is and how that's physiological.
Right. Anxiety is like a chronic, ongoing state.
And panic attacks are the things that happen that shut you down and put you in a place of not being able to function.
Right. When that chronic state starts to ramp up into a much more elevated state, the body changes, and as the body changes, the mind and emotions start to follow along.
And so what ends up happening is you either shut down or you're real frantic and you're like looking for something to fix it and make yourself better, and or you literally, like I said, you shut down, you can't function. And I've had panic attacks before, and they're terrifying. They
By definition.
By definition, and yeah, they I know for me, like my heart starts racing, my mind, I can't ground, and I have a difficult time really figuring out what's going on.
You can ground.
I can, thank you.
It's been hard.
But yes, thank you. I can ground because I do, and just finding a way to walk through the panic attack, to be able to come out on the other side and begin healing on purpose from that.
So a lot of times people don't recognize panic attacks because they may feel like a physical thing at first. You might feel heart palpitations, you might feel just kind of like things are closing in you, just tightness in your chest, or even pain, kind of shooting pains. But sometimes those things can be indicative of panic attacks. Now, keep in mind they're not always, and so be sure that you always take good care of your medical health and work with a medical health professional. But panic attacks, just like anxiety, when we talked about it, can have a genesis that's either cognitive, emotional, or biological. A panic attack can have a genesis in any one of those three things as well. It doesn't necessarily have a precursor, and I think that's why it sometimes confuses people. You can be sitting, minding your own business in a beautiful setting, when all of a sudden, whether it's your body or a thought or something in your environment you don't recognize, suddenly stimulates that increase in your state of anxiety. And when your body starts to respond, typically as your body responds, your mind and your emotions will follow. It can start as an emotion, and then your body and mind follow, and it can start as a thought, and then your emotions and body follow. But the point of a panic attack is, if anxiety is kind of this chronic state, a panic attack is a sudden escalation in that really rockets you into the part of your brain called the brainstem. Now, we'll teach a lot about that throughout the series, but it's important to recognize that once we're in our brainstem, when Polly said a minute ago, I can't ground, the brainstem can't reason, it can't think through things, it's not designed to solve problems. It's either on or it's off, and everything's fine. So when the brainstem's off, it just means you feel safe and everything's fine. When the brainstem's on, it's not going to reason, it's going to try to preserve your safety.
It's going to keep you alive at every cost.
One of the reasons that's important to know is, again, people feel sometimes shame or guilt about these kind of things. Someone will say, why do you worry? Or they'll quote a Bible verse to you or something like that. A panic attack is a physiological state that rockets you into your brainstem, and your brainstem's never designed to memorize, resolve, problem solve. It's simply designed to keep you not dead. And so it's important, as Polly said in our video on anxiety, every experience you have, if you can look back at it to learn, can put you that much further ahead in your own mental health journey. So every panic attack that you might have, you can look back and go, what can I learn from that? Is there something specific that started it? What did I do that didn't work? Not to shame yourself, but to recognize, don't try that next time.
It's like, that one didn't work.
And what did finally work? Sometimes, I think one of the reasons why Polly made the statement, I couldn't ground, is I think sometimes the connection between people can really help that grounding, because someone else may not be in their brainstem. Again, we want to emphasize that medication is always an option in the long run, and can certainly help with this. But if you find yourself in the middle of a panic attack, let's talk about a couple things like grounding, mindfulness, and connection.
And so let's first take grounding. And so when I was talking about, panic attack and said, I can't ground, and I've learned to, and there's been different ways that I have grounded. But let's take a minute about what is grounding. Grounding is literally that term of if you're in the middle of a panic attack, or what sometimes they're called anxiety attacks, and you're scattered, you can't see, you can't think, literally trying to ground and go, my feet are on the ground. I'm feeling my toes. I'm looking at the wall and the walls are gray. Bob's shirt is blue. Mine is orange. And really start seeing around you in the present moment and being able to bring present into the now.
As much as you can, engage your 5 senses in the right now. And I always say verbalize it.
Yes, verbalize it. Say it out loud. And just, you'll start feeling all the stuff and all the anxiety and the panic and all that to start settling a little bit. And in that, that's when you can start going, okay, is there something I can touch that has a different kind of, like mine is more silky, his is more blue jean, and so just really, the box, I can hear it. I can hear my voice and really spend some time just recognizing what's going on around you.
Is there a smell in the room that's familiar? Is there a sound that really means something? Do I hear a bird outside?
Yeah.
And turning your senses that direction does a number of things. If you've ever tried to fight against something that's instinctive, you know that you resisting an instinct actually increases the power of the instinct, right? And so it's why you try to go to sleep and it makes it harder to go to sleep. Any instinct, anything that's instinctive that you resist, you actually feed the instinct. So trying to fight against a panic attack actually feeds the power of it. Turning your attention elsewhere, grounding, getting your senses present in the moment. And the smell, taste, touch, connection, all those different things, that those things actually can pull you out of it, or at least get you back to where you can do more cognition.
Well, and do that now. After you finish watching this video, pull things together that help ground you. The Hot Box, the Jules box, has multiple grounding techniques that really help you come out of a state of a panic attack. And so just look around you. You don't have to have a box to do that. You can have things at home, like something soft and fluffy, something rough that you can verbalize. You can have something in your purse or your wallet, or put something in your car that might help interrupt what's going on, so you can go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to ground. This is going to help me. And take notes and take some write some journaling down going, this is what happened the last time I had a panic attack. And
so important.
And now I wonder, if I can kind of think about what happened leading up to it. Don't be afraid to leave a movie if it's something that's triggering you and putting you in a panic attack. If you're in a store, it's okay to leave your basket there and go. If you're at the office, talk to your boss ahead of time and say, hey, sometimes this happens and I may need to verbalize that I'm going to take care of myself for about 15 minutes and do some mindfulness things. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about being mindful.
Mindfulness. So along with grounding and moving into mindfulness, one of the key things is also deep breathe. So you've got the top of your mind telling your brainstem settle down, but when the brainstem also needs some physiological input, right? And so when you breathe deep, it tells the brain from the bottom side, from the basement, it tells the brainstem that it's going to survive. Well, the top of your brain is starting to ground. So moving into mindfulness, you may or may not have heard the term mindfulness, and so if you've not heard it, what really mindfulness has to do with is, again, being present, except now it has to do with being willing to be connected to yourself in a moment where your mind might prefer to be disconnected, right? So when we start to feel uncomfortable, anxiety, fear, even shame, sometimes what happens is we want to disconnect, but the immediate move to disconnect usually feeds the negative state. And so as much as we don't want to reconnect, the idea of being mindful is to say, what's happening inside of me? Where am I? What's going on? And to not disconnect from self, because it's logical when you hear it this way. To disconnect from self takes away the resources that you need internally to settle your soul, your body, your mind, and your emotions down. So to connect to yourself, the scary part of that is that it feels like if I connect to this, I'm going to drown. And so it may take a few different times to practice, hence the journaling thing that Polly talked about, so crucial. To be able to say mindfulness is me being willing to stop and pay attention. What's happening with me right now? And it doesn't have to be smart. It just has to be connected.
Yes.
Right now, I feel a sharp pain in my chest. Right now, I feel like I might die. Right now, and it's the willingness to connect internally to what your mind is trying to disconnect from.
And recognize it and not fight against it.
And even put some words to it. Again, you heard us say that in grounding. Putting words to it completes a circuit in your nervous system that says, I'm aware of it, now I'm going to express it. I connect to it, now I'm going to speak it. And when you connect that circuit, it again brings your nervous system into a more normal state and gives you an opportunity to reach toward more self-connection.
Yes.
So grounding, connect to the world around you. Mindfulness, connect to the world inside of you. And then connection as a whole. We talked earlier about how it's important to get out of the bottom part of the brain. Well, connection between people you trust, is a super important part of really getting out of those lower parts of the brain. Well, the bottom part of the brain wants to keep you not dead. The top part of your brain, the limbic system where connection happens, is the place where you can begin to experience full aliveness.
Yeah.
And moving into connection can actually pull you out of those places where that panic attack has started to accelerate or even is kind of peaking.
Yeah.
So what else?
So I think that's it for this one.
Okay.
And just remember, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And if you have a panic attack, you don't have to have shame and you don't have to be mad at yourself. It's information and you're learning about yourself. And I'm really proud of you for doing that, because that is all about healing on purpose, is getting in front of this thing that no longer gets to control our lives. And so take some time, practice deep breathing, practice grounding, say those words out loud, because in the middle of something you might be like, I'm so embarrassed to do this. So practice it now. Write some things down that might be helpful if you were to have a panic attack in the near future or the future. And just take really good care of yourself, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.